Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Dynasty After Dark. This is going to be round 2 of the rookie mock draft, early rookie mock draft. And if you haven't heard yet, we've already gone through round number 1, first 12 picks. And, like we talked about extensively last time, not all the picks are going to fall based on how I rank them top 24, but that should give you a good idea of where the value is when your rookie drafts do finally come around. So real quick, just running through that. And again, if you want some of the thought process behind some of these picks, go back and listen to the round 1 recap that we did. And real quick before we get into it, you follow me over on Twitter at TDC_Calvin. You can follow Dale over on Twitter at Dynasty_Dale. You can find this podcast on the YouTube channel, Spotify, anywhere you listen to podcasts. You can find Dynasty After Dark. But I also want to give you guys a shout out for Let's Talk Sports YouTube channel. I did start a second podcast over there, The Calvin Tim Show. It's great. My ego is fully fulfilled. But no, it's kind of great because this one is completely Dynasty focused. But on that one, I'm just kind of free to talk sports. And, we talked, my first guest, I had Bobby G, great dude to talk to. We talked about UFC. We talked about the playoffs, real football. Didn't really even touch on fantasy too much over there. So it's just kind of a good time. And I got to give a shout out to Let's Talk Sports for letting me do that. So go check out their YouTube channel and pretty much find this podcast over there. A lot of other great dudes over there as well. So that said, recap around number 1. CJ Stroud was number 1, Bijan Robinson 2, Anthony Richardson 3, JSN, Jackson Smith, and Jigba 4. Jahmyr Gibbs was 5. Quentin Johnston, number 6. Michael Mayer, number 7. Hendon Hooker, 8. Kendre Miller is going to be 9. Bryce Young, the big controversial outlier here, him and Hendon Hooker, I guess, is going to be 10. Kayshon Boutte at 11. And Zach Charbonnet at 12, rounding out the first round. So that was the first round. Dale, before we get into the second round, any thoughts?
On the first round, it's interesting. But I really hope in the second round you don't have Stinson Bennett. So
I do, but you won't be disappointed. It's very, very late. So just
okay,
because of
okay,
Superflex. And again,
right,
I don't
yes,
like Stinson Bennett. Don't get me wrong. I just think that he's going to be drafted as a first-round pick. Kenny Pickett was a first-round pick, and I hated him. So, and I still gave him some respect in here. So there is that. But no, we'll get to him. Don't want to spoil anything too much there. But any thoughts? Today we actually have the playoffs, the final championship games. Quick prediction: who you think's going to win each game?
yeah, I think it's going to be the Eagles in the first game, and in the evening game it's going to be the Bengals.
I agree with you on the Bengals. I actually think it's the Niners, so that'll be a fun one.
Yes,
Those
definitely,
teams are very close. Yeah, at least the NFC team. Like literally, it's like the number 1, number 2 defense, so it could go either way. So we'll see how that goes. But I actually have the Bengals winning the Super Bowl in 2 weeks, so that should be fun. But all right, that said, let's jump into round number 2 here, and we're gonna kick it off with somebody that I think was kind of forgotten about a little bit in round number 1 there, and that is going to be Jordan Addison. And again, there's so many good players in round 1, and I get it, we don't have to rehash it, the Hendon Hooker thing, but Jordan Addison is someone that I just have a gut feeling him or Kayshon Boutte are going to fall into the early second round, and that's just going to be a huge value. And the reason why I have the other 3 wide receivers above him and is just because of the size factor. I believe that JSN, Johnston, and Boutte can all be the dominant alpha outside type of wide receiver, where Jordan Addison can succeed in that role, but I don't think he's ever going to be as dominant. He's more of a Hollywood Brown type of player to me, and Hollywood Brown's great, but he shines much more out of the slot. And I think Jordan Addison can be very dangerous, but when I'm picking these guys, I'd rather have those 3 above him for their outlier potential. But Jordan Addison is definitely someone that I could be definitely sleeping on him. So we'll see. What are your thoughts on him here at number 13 overall?
Yeah, it's for Addison. I do agree with you. He's probably going to fall. Probably in the late first round, beginning in the second. I mean, it's it's because there's going to be a lot of risers, I would guess, in this draft.
Mm-hmm.
So I think he's probably well suited around there. I kind of think he could be like this year's like Devontae Smith. Um,
It's
and
possible. It
and I
is
know,
definitely
yeah,
possible.
yeah, it is very possible. And I can see him being around this because like I said, there's going to be a lot of risers. There's going to be some probably some people taking running backs.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's before Addison, which I think is an interesting strategy in rookie drafts because
Right.
typically we've seen the past few years that wide receivers typically translate a lot better in
Yep.
fantasy.
Yep, and
So
that's the
so
one thing
yeah,
too. So
yes,
real quick to hammer down those 2 points, and you said two things that I wholeheartedly agree with. One, people have been taking wide receiver over most of their running backs the last couple of years, and I just want to point out that this year's running back class is actually very, very good. We haven't
yes,
had an elite running back class really since maybe 2020, the Jonathan Taylor year.
yeah,
There's a lot of potential with that class still, but
yes,
injuries have really derailed that class a lot.
yeah,
But before that, it hasn't been since 2017 that we've really gotten a rejuvenation of the running back. And I think that this year's draft class has all that billing. And that's why I think running backs are going to go so heavily in the first
mm,
round because people have just been. It'll be interesting to watch because people have been burned by running backs so much over the last couple of years. So are they going to
yeah,
fade these running backs, or are they going to say these guys are the answer, and because they could very well could be, right? So that's going to be very interesting to watch. And then the second point you said was this: Jordan Addison could be this year's Devonta Smith, and I believe
mm,
that as well. But that's kind of the issue I have with Devonta Smith, right? I don't think Devonta Smith is ever
yeah,
going to be an elite fantasy option. And he's a very good, very solid, high floor type of guy. But I just don't
mm,
really see him having as high of a ceiling. So, if he is Devonta Smith for this year's draft class, that's the only red flag for me. Where I think the other three guys have that potential, not Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, but, a
right,
lesser version of that where they can jump
yeah.
up as high, right?
Yeah, yeah, in the piggyback off that, I mean, with Smith's finish this year, I think he finished wide receiver 15 or something like that. Like he finished around there, which
Yeah.
which honestly, if Addison can do that, I think that's a fantastic pick at pick 201.
Right. Yep. George Pickens, same kind of
Yep.
vein there. So
Yes.
I love
Yes.
the value on
Yep.
it. And it
Yes.
just goes to show you the depth of this class because number two right here is actually going to be Sean Tucker. And I like Sean Tucker a lot. The problem is the size. He's going to be very, very quick, but he is a smaller
Hmm.
type of dude. Austin
Yep.
Eckler, light, essentially.
Mhm.
Sean Tucker. And again, he's someone that needs to go to a good spot that's going to utilize him well. But if he goes somewhere to kind of compete as a third down type of guy, it does make me a little nervous for fantasy. I do like the skill set of Sean Tucker, but I just don't know if the NFL is going to value him the same way, right? They're going to see his smaller stature, and I think that they're just going to be a little bit more down on it, essentially. So, any thoughts on Sean Tucker here?
I'm very excited about Sean Tucker. I think he's going to be one player that really rises. I can see him going late in the first round. It's by a lot of people.
Sure.
I mean, kind of going off you, like his size does worry me, but if he could be even 75% as productive as Austin Eckler is,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a fantastic pick.
Yeah, we will see. Maybe the Chargers end up taking him, and it could
Yeah,
be just
exactly.
a
Yeah.
passing of the torch there. So, um,
Yes.
thoughts on him? So, in terms of your running back rankings, he was right there at the top of tier three for me.
Yep.
I'd rather have all four of those other guys that went in the first round over him.
Mm.
Would you rather have someone like Sean Tucker, Jordan Addison? Where's the kind of the tier break there?
I would much rather have Jordan Addison, but that's because in rookie drafts I value wide receiver more. I've been trending more that way because
Yep.
I've been burnt before by running backs, like Keyshawn Vaughn. I was burnt by him a couple years ago, and thankfully I still got Justin Jefferson in that draft.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I got very, very lucky there. So, I could see one of these running backs being like the Keyshawn Vaughns a few years ago and not really performing like we think they are.
Yeah, I mean, that's the one downside, right? There's so
Yes.
many high value running backs in this class that somebody is going to disappoint. It's just, are you going to be playing hot potato and be the one that catches the potato, right? So,
Exactly.
no, I like Sean Tucker, and the reason I like him a little bit more over number 3 here, Will Levis. If you go back and you listen to it, I don't love Will Levis at all, but it's almost a lock that he's going to be a first round pick. Again, I'd rather have Hendon Hooker over Will Levis any day of the week if I'm an NFL team, but I just have a gut feeling that Will Levis is going to be a first round pick, but that doesn't make him good, right? That's the one downside for Will Levis. I just don't really see him translating to the NFL, especially if you go back to our quarterback ranking show, there's so many red flags about this kid. And like, I get it. Josh Allen had red flags too, overcame them. And it's not impossible for someone like Will Levis to overcome that. But like, I did not like Kenny Pickett last year. After a single year, Kenny Pickett was the 107 in Superflex on average last year. There's 4 quarterbacks that I have ranked above Will Levis. I just can't get on board with him in the first round. And honestly, I'd rather take the shot on Sean Tucker. If you could get Austin Eckler 2.0 from Sean Tucker, that's going to be much more valuable than someone like Will Levis, who I don't even think is going to potentially make it. So, what are your thoughts on Levis here in the second round?
Yeah, it's with Levis. I don't understand the hype. I mean,
I
I get
agree,
he has the
man.
prototypical. Yeah, like I get he has the size. He has I mean, he has fantastic arm strength, but played far,
Nobody.
and that's been yeah, that's been very. I understand he's playing at Kentucky and he doesn't have the typical weapons as like the other SEC team. But
hmm
I can see the comparisons with Josh Allen. Like I get it,
I
but
do too.
also I just don't. I do see it, but like I just think he's your trap player.
Yep, 100%. I'm with
He
you.
really is. So I feel he's I just don't think he does anything really well
hmm
other than throwing the ball really far, which isn't always as good.
Yeah, right.
At least for Josh Allen, it's for Josh Allen at least. Like he was able to move and at least make plays with his legs
Right.
compared to Will Levis, which really hasn't shown he's able to do that.
Right. Yeah, he has not shown a lot of mobility, and like
Right.
your first point there, he doesn't have all the weapons that some of these other guys do. But
Yeah.
like I said, I'd rather have Hendon Hooker over him. Hendon Hooker played better competition. Doesn't really have any weapons either. So I think he played a lot better than someone like Will Levis. But when you go, the best comp that I have for that, go back to Justin Herbert a couple years ago. Justin Herbert had nobody around him. The same
Yeah.
draft class that saw Justin Herbert go top 5 overall to the Chargers, he didn't have a single weapon go in the top 6 rounds of that draft. Like, there was nobody
Mhm.
on that team. And I get it. Will Levis might not have anybody go that high either in this year's draft class, but he
Right.
also didn't play well. Like, Justin Herbert had good stats while playing with nobody. That's kind of why I loved Herbert as much as I did. Will Levis has bad stats and he's played with nobody. So it's like, it's
Yeah.
like you said, he's like the ultimate trap player here. So I'm
Yeah.
not saying completely disrespect him and ignore him. And when we get to this next tier of guys, that's kind of where the bigger question marks start to come in. And it's a super flex, so you kind of got to put the quarterback at the top of that ranking of those
Mhm.
guys.
Yes.
So, we're jumping down a tier here in terms of all players, and I would just rather have Will Levis over some of the other question marks, even though I don't really believe in the talent. I could be wrong, so I'm hedging my bets a little bit there. All right, so number 4 here in the second round is actually going to be Josh Downs. And, get him. Josh Downs is going to be my second wide receiver of the second round, 5th overall. And like we said in the wide receiver show, there's a few question marks with Josh, and I just won't. I have a feeling he's going to go higher than I think he is in the actual NFL draft. Maybe he shows off a little bit better. He just reminds me so much of a DJ Moore type of player who hasn't been bad, but it just hasn't been what he's billed to be, right? So I do like Josh Downs, but I just don't know if it can translate well to the NFL.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I agree with that. I like Josh Downs too. I think his size has a little bit with him being he's 5'10", 175. Like I think
Mm-hmm.
he has that going against him, but other than that, like he's really produced with it's the likes of Sam Howell, and
Yeah.
Drake May. So he's had good talent at the in at the quarterback position. Really helped him.
Yep.
I think he's going to be. I really like him. I think he's going to do fine. I can see him being like the Tyler Lockett kind of player.
Mm-hmm.
I can see. I think he's probably going to go probably first round, and if he goes to like the Chiefs, I think that would be a very interesting
Right.
place for
Right.
him to go.
Yeah, in the second or something, that'd be.
Yeah.
He to me, he
Yes.
just has second round pick written all over him. Like even the Steelers in the second round would not be terrible, to be honest
Right.
with you.
Right.
Um, or even let's say Washington gets crazy this offseason and go pair him with Sam Howell. Like it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to do.
Oh, it would.
Kind of get younger there, trade Terry McLaurin to somebody, kind of commit to a little bit of a rebuild there in
Hmm.
Washington. But yeah,
I
it's going to
agree.
be a big question where he goes. That's ultimately going to drive his fantasy value, in my opinion. If he goes somewhere, let's say he's a third, fourth round pick, it's really going to push him down boards. But I still like the talent quite a bit. I just like the other guys a lot more. I think that there's a lot more. Even Jordan Addison, who is a 2-1, we talked about as a Devonta Smith type. Devonta Smith is like a very high wide receiver too consistently. That's kind of where he's going to live at. And I could see Josh Downs living as a mid wide receiver too. And again, you need these guys to help you win your league. You're not going to have
Mhm.
all the Jamar Chases and Justin Jeffersons. Like if you are, you're not playing in a competitive league. Let's be honest. If you have all those players and all those picks, it's not competitive. That's just kind of the situation that we're dealing with here. So, Josh Downs is someone that I believe can be a good player, just not a great player.
Yeah. And really like at the 2-4, like you're looking for somebody that's just going to be solid.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Not going to burn you. Right.
Yep.
So,
Yep. Yep.
if you're
Exactly.
going in the second round, this is kind of my philosophy with these guys. If you're taking a running back, you're taking upside. And if
Yes.
you want a floor running back with upside, you take him in the first. If you want a floor running back in the second round, yeah, you're probably wasting your pick there because there's really no guaranteed floor with these guys anymore. So take upside. But if you're going for a wide receiver, it's kind of opposite, right? If you want a high ceiling wide receiver, you take him in the first. If you want a safer guy, take him in the second. So that's kind of what this next pick is going to be as well. So my next guy here is going to be, where is he? Israel Abakanda. Abanakanda. Hard name to pronounce, but I really like this guy. We talked about him on the running back show. And there's the funny thing is, I've seen a lot of guys really start to come out the last couple of weeks and talk about how he's going to be someone that it rises up boards and everything. And hello, got a little visitor here for this episode, but this is the downsides of doing this during nap time. One of the kids wakes up, right? But
Yeah.
Israel Abakanda, he's someone that I've seen a lot of analysts talk about as rising up their boards, and this kid has all the tools in the book. He's not a perfect prospect whatsoever, but the ceiling on him is insane. You look at the measurables, 5'11", 215. He's got perfect size, and when you look at him on tape, he can catch the ball pretty well. He's very mobile or very fluid in his mobility, and I just really like what I can see from this kid, and that's why I'm putting him here in the second round. Realistically, I could see him being 212, 3-1, somewhere in that
Hmm.
range, but I think he's going to be a steal of the draft. I'm probably going to have him in almost every single league. What do you think about him?
I like him, but I don't like him as much as you do. I would much rather have the likes of Zach Evans or um. I mean, I don't even have him in my top 20. I'll be very honest.
Ah,
Um,
man.
no,
I
I
know.
know. I
It's
just I
early.
haven't lot.
You have
It is
time.
very early, so right. I know. I don't know. Like I think there's other guys I'd rather. I kind of see him being like a third round. That's more where I see him right now.
I agree
I
with
just
you.
don't
I
think
think
he
that's where he's
does.
going to
Yeah,
go, but I think that's where it's going to be a massive steal because you just mentioned the guy that is going to be at 2.6 here, Zach Evans, and comparing these two, what did I just like we just talked about? I think the ceiling on Abanaconda is way higher than Zach Evans. Zach Evans is just kind of a you know vanilla running back. Like, is that the best way to
right.
put him?
Fair,
He
fair.
doesn't do
Yeah,
anything elite,
yeah.
but he's just not bad at anything. So, um, I think Israel. I'm just gonna say his first name from now. I think he is going to be. He has the potential for an Alvin Kamara type of ceiling. Like I just see that from him, but he does have to refine it. I do understand that, but I'm betting on him over Zach Evans any day, and which is crazy because Zach Evans at 2.6. People are also going to go crazy on that, saying that he should be, the 1.6, the 1.7. And I just don't see that. Again, if I'm taking a running back in the first round, I want upside. I just don't see any upside with Zach Evans.
Yeah. Well, I see upside with him. I think I could see him, like you said, like being like being one of those first round running backs where like people are trying to get more of a ceiling hit. I'm not sure about his floor. I think they're both pretty equal with Evans and Abaconda. I just think Evans has more tools in his arsenal than Abaconda personally.
Fair, but
Yeah.
are you with me with Zach Evans on what are your thoughts on him in the second though? Because like we
Oh,
talked about, I think people are going to be chasing him
I
in the first.
yes, yes. Oh no, at 2.6, that's I think I have him ranked, like in the second round, um, in my ranking. So like I like him there, and if he falls a 2.6 to me, I would be more than happy with it.
Yeah, it's not a bad pick there, but I just don't think
No,
it's going to
no,
happen. That's kind of the problem, right?
no.
So,
I
in
agree.
reality, if he's around the 1.7, 1.7, 1.8, 1.9, like people like him. A lot of people like him more than Kendra Miller and Zach Charbonnet, and I don't see the upside there.
No.
Like those guys are so much better. Like Zach Charbonnet versus Zach Evans. Zach Charbonnet is just the better version of Zach Evans, right? And Kendra Miller is just more explosive in general, and I'd rather have all the guys we mentioned so far over him, but he's going to be the biggest fade. And I think that it's going to be a bust pick, in my opinion, to take him in the first round. I think you're going to be overdrafting him, but that's where you're going to have to take him if you want him. So,
Yeah.
again, looking at this, Will Levis is probably going to be top 6 pick in the actual
Mm-hmm.
rookie drafts. Zach Evans
Yep.
is going to be a top 10 pick in most rookie drafts. And I'm saying they're not even second round. They're barely like upper second round picks. So
Yeah.
you take that for what it is. But I just think that there's better names you could have over these guys. All right. So what are we on here? 18? No, Zach Evans was 18. So number 19 here. It's going to be the other wide receiver with my favorite quarterback from this draft class, Jalen Hyatt. And Jalen Hyatt, at 2.7 feels like a steal. There's rumors that this guy is going to be a first round wide receiver in the actual NFL draft. And if that's the case, it's going to boost him up boards like crazy. But I just think
Mhm.
that Jalen Hyatt, this is about the range where I expect him to go. Him and Josh Downs are probably a little more interchangeable here in the mid second, but I think that the upside for these two guys for fantasy football is pretty high, but they're just a little bit more risky, right? Just because of the size concerns, draft concerns, things like that. But Jalen Hyatt is someone that is very, very quick. And go back to our wide receiver rankings. He's someone that we like. We had both Jalen Hyatt and Josh Downs in the tier 2 of wide receivers. So it's no slight on any of those guys. But again, just comparing the positional value, Superflex, obviously quarterbacks go higher. Michael Mayer is by far the best, tight end prospect in this draft class. And then running back, again, I think people are kind of just looking at this draft class as just a rejuvenation of the position completely across the board. That's why we have 7 guys over him. But in reality, if it was last year, Jalen Hyatt would probably be a first-round pick. Like, I like Jalen Hyatt
Oh yeah.
almost as much as some of the guys that were going in, the early second last year, your George Pickens, those type of guys. It's close between Pickens and Jalen Hyatt. It's not that sizable of a gap. So what are your thoughts on Jalen Hyatt here?
I'm going to continue to fade on Jalen Hyatt. I
Yeah,
think he's one. I think he's one of those 1 year wonders. Um, I don't. I don't like. I think he has a certain. He's a one trick pony. In that all he does is 9 routes. I see him in. I'll be honest, and that's not bad. But like, I mean,
worse for some
like that's what
people.
helped. Yeah, it does. But that doesn't work for everyone.
True.
And I mean, would you rather have Hyatt or Jameson Williams? Because I see those guys
Well, I
similarly.
mean, Jamison
I'll
Williams
be, I'll
was
be,
the
I'm,
1-7 last year, so I mean,
I
it's
agree.
obviously you'd rather have him, but
I know. But honestly, with that, I'm feeling comps with Williams or Williamson. Excuse me. But I feel a similar vibe that like he's just gonna.
he's
I
not
can see him
he's
being
not
a
as well rounded as Jameson as Jamo
right.
was
I
coming out.
agree.
So
I
like
agree.
obviously I get what you're saying because Jameson is kind of the deeper threat type of guy, and I
Yes.
understand that.
Yes.
But Jalen Hyatt, you know, the perfect team for him would be like the New York Giants. They need weapons everywhere, right? They
Yeah.
don't have a deep
Yeah.
threat at all. Jalen Hyatt
Right.
goes to New York and plays for that team. Man, that could be really, really good for him for fantasy because Daniel Jones just doesn't have that option. And,
Yeah.
most teams are going to be playing up front to kind of shut down the run and all that. But they need so many weapons over in New York that it would be a good fit there. Let's just imagine a world, right, where they go Jalen Hyatt and Quentin Johnston in this upcoming draft. And all of a sudden you got 2 guys you got to really watch out for. And,
Hmm.
you got to pick your poison a little bit there where they're both fast. But, I think Jalen Hyatt has the potential at least to learn more of the route tree. Maybe he's not as well rounded in it right now, but they have time. He's young. He can definitely put it together. So I don't want to completely count him out. And when you do have that kind of speed, that is something special, right? So we don't want to
Right. I
discount it
agree.
completely, but yeah,
But
there are definite
but
flaws here, right?
yeah. Yeah. But honestly, I see him being like John Ross and just being a guy that's fast, and that's all he
As long
does.
as he's not the 7 overall pick, we're fine.
I fully agree with that. I agree, but I'm just
Or 9 overall.
I've been burned too many times by players like this,
That's
and
true. That is fair. That is very,
yeah,
very fair.
yes,
These guys
yes,
burn you
yes. I
almost
mean,
every single year, right? But
yeah, almost every single year, and I think I would rather have. I'm starting to see I would rather have other players that you probably won't even say in your top 24 than Jalen Hyatt.
possibly we'll see here. But
Yeah.
and as we finish out these last 5, we can talk over. Jalen Hyatt seems to be the first outlier in this round for you, right? Where you'd rather have,
Yeah.
well, maybe Abanaconda Israel. We'll just say
I mean,
Israel.
honestly, I would rather have Abaconda over Hyatt because at
Yeah.
least I know I'm going to get a decent floor with Abaconda, and for Hyatt, like I could get games that he has 0 points, but I could also get the big explosion games. But I see those
Mm-hmm.
few and far between.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, there's a couple more wide receivers we have listed here, so we'll talk on them here shortly. All right, so number 19 here, no, number 20. Man, we're going quick. Tank Bigsby, and this is the last running back that will be drafted in the top 24 for me. And again, I can't emphasize it enough. Everyone is kind of looking at this draft class as the saviors, and you're gonna say, "Wow, you don't have Devin Akane, you don't have Deuce Vaughn, Tajay Spears. I like all those guys, but take them in the third, man. The size concerns for those guys are just way too massive, and I like it. I like the upside, and that's what you should be aiming for. But you got to be realistic too, right?
Yeah.
Tank Bigsby is 6 foot 213. Deuce Vaughn is 5'6", 176. Like it's not comparable. The upside is
It's
higher.
different.
Deuce
Yes.
Vaughn is going to be
Yes.
way faster. I
Mhm.
100% understand that.
Mhm.
But give me the guy that has the potential for an every down back versus
Yes.
Deuce Vaughn. So Tank Bigsby is going to be the last guy here. And again, this is just where the drop off, and it's not a great wide receiver class. And I think that kind of artificially boosts guys. Even for me, like Jalen Hyatt, I'm not the biggest fan of Jalen Hyatt, but I think that the gap between Jalen Hyatt and the next guy is just much higher than this class is worth, right? We have, it just falls off so quick after those first four wide receivers that
Yeah.
you're just kind
Yeah.
of taking a stab at guys that you think might have that upside of wide receiver 2 or higher, but it's just no guarantee, right? All right, so Tank
Yeah.
Bigsby, thoughts here?
Yeah. I like Tank Bigsby there. I think he's going to be very solid. I think he has a
Literally,
pretty
he's a
decent.
tank.
Yeah, I know he literally is a tank, and I have no qualms with him being.
Okay. So real quick, versus Israel, who would you rather have, Tank or Israel?
As of right now, I think I'd rather have Tank.
Okay, that's where it gets kind of interesting, right? Because size-wise, they're about the same.
Yeah.
Had these guys in the same tier, so all these second round guys were all in the same tier, just for transparency there. But the problem with Tank Bigsby is I just don't think he's the most explosive guy. That's just the one downside on him, where that's why I like Israel so much. I think that he has that explosive factor over Zach Evans, over Tank Bigsby, that I just love so much more. Same with Sean Tucker, right? That's kind of just why they're ranked a little bit higher. Maybe I'm overvaluing explosion right now, but in early rankings, it seems to be the safest, right? So after the combine and after the draft, it might change things, but all right, so, and you'd rather have Tank than Hyatt still?
I think I would. I mean, in my rankings, I have Hyatt above Bigsby, but I've been but I did those rankings a couple weeks ago, and I've been fading more Hyatt.
You'll come back.
I've just I mean I'll probably have him. I mean I have Hyatt ranked, I think 18th.
Okay.
And where and I have him ranked around where he's probably going to be picked at, and I think he's going to be picked appropriately, but I am not going to pick him.
Yeah, and that's where, again, this is where it's going to be very interesting. And depending on who you listen to for your draft analysts all offseason, you're going to see guys that have Tank Bigsby as a first-round pick. And again, I'm not sold on that, but
no.
You're going to see it. Yeah, I'm just prepping you.
I know.
So, yeah, you'll see Boutte at some people have him at 210. You'll have Tank Bigsby at 1.8, and it's just going to be wild. This year has no consensus yet, and it's going to be very interesting to watch that. All right, so next guy here is going to be another wide receiver, and it's going to be, if I can find it, here he is, Xavier Hutchinson. Yep, I like Hutchinson a lot. Again, I think the upside for him, if we knew the draft landing spot of these two guys now, and let's say they were the same round, I'd probably be taking Hutchinson over Jalen Hyatt. I like his skill set more, but I just think that Jalen Hyatt is going to have a higher ceiling based on draft capital. And, that's not the safest argument, but I'm nervous about Xavier Hutchinson, if he's going to be a top 3, like a day 2 pick or not. And if he can ensure, 4th or better in terms of draft capital, I'll be all in on him. But it does make me a little nervous. Meanwhile, you got Jalen Hyatt with first round hype around him. And again, I don't love him there, but it's possible, right? So I just think that kind of differentiates these two guys. But if they're, let's say they were 301 and 302 in the actual NFL draft, give me Xavier every day of the week. So, I like this guy. He's got a very well-rounded skill set, but some matchup concerns, not from the biggest school, So we'll see what he can do, but there's not many big body guys in this wide receiver core. 6'3", 205. Size is going to be something that people are looking for, and He's got speed too. He's not just big and bulky, kind of like who was that one guy we talked about that we watched in person, became what's his face? Hakeem Butler. Hakeem
Oh
Butler was a
yes,
big dude,
yes,
right?
yes,
He was a big dude, but
yes.
he
He
had no
was. He was
mobility,
huge.
right? No
Exactly.
shiftiness at all. So Xavier
Yes.
doesn't have that. He reminds me more of a Michael Pittman type, a Rashad Bateman type, where they're the kind
Hmm.
of taller, slender type of guys, but they can move pretty well. So that's kind of how
Yeah.
Xavier Hutchinson stands out to me.
Yeah, yeah, no, I definitely see that. I would rather have him over Hyatt because I know he's going to at least he's gone up against like press coverages
Hmm.
and stuff like that, and is able to be physical compared to like Hyatt, where he played in the slot mostly at Tennessee, and you don't necessarily get those press coverages, and you're more getting it based on matchup.
Right.
So, I would much rather. I honestly had a hard time ranking Hutchinson with some of these other wide receivers because I feel they're all really close together.
Yeah, yep, I agree with you there. So, draft capital is going to be huge for these guys. Testing going to be
Yes,
fairly
absolutely.
significant for them, but
Yes.
um, yeah, we'll see where their actual landing spot is, because this next guy is the last tight end we're going to talk about, but the guy after that, that's where I want to kind of jump on him a little bit more in depth. So, 210 here is going to be Darnell Washington, and again, it's not tight end premium for this mock draft, but I just like the talent of this guy. I think that there's a lot of rumors that he might go in the first round to like the Chargers, for example, and
Hmm.
that would be a great landing spot in reality, because like even if he's a high second, let's say he goes to the Chargers, they need a tight end pretty bad. And they need a
Yeah.
blocker for their offensive line, and this guy can do both. So he's going to see a lot of play time from day one. And, when you tie him to an elite offense like Justin Herbert, that's going to be pretty good there. So we'll see where his landing spot is. He's the one that I could definitely see falling off my board in the top 24, but it just felt disrespectful not to keep him up there just because of how I think his playmaking potential, at a position of need, it should definitely be mentioned at least. A couple years ago, we had Kyle Pitts as a top 5 pick in most leagues, and then you had Pat Fryermuth in the late second in a lot of superflex leagues. I think that he could be the Pat Fryermuth of this draft class. I don't think he's as explosive and as good of an athlete as Pat Fryermuth, but I think he could be just as deadly of a weapon as him. And he's going to be someone you can snag very, very late, even in tight end premium. I think that you could grab him pretty late in the second.
Yeah. You are much higher on Darnell Washington than I am. I think I'd rather have another tight end that I know you're not very fond of in Kincaid there. I think that's where Kincaid's going to fall, and I've also seen mocks with like Kincaid like going in the first round, which I
Yeah,
think would
I
blow your
mean, come on,
mind.
Daniel Jeremiah
It
hasn't
would,
even he
it
even
would.
admitted he hasn't watched these tight ends yet.
Right, right.
No, I
So
get it. I
I
do
think
get it.
yeah, yeah. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how these guys test.
Yeah.
Honestly, because I think Washington and Kincaid are generally I think they're around the same.
No, Kincaid. So Washington is
It's
6'7", 265.
oh
He's a big boy.
yeah,
Um,
he's much bigger than yeah, I
yeah,
apologize.
Michael Mayer
So
and Dalton Kincaid are
yeah,
about the same size. So those
same
two are very,
size.
very close.
Gotcha,
But
gotcha.
Washington, that's where I'm with you there. I want to see how explosive he can be, because he is a big boy, right? So
Yes,
that might slow him down a little bit. But if he, let's say he runs
right.
like a 4.8, oh man, I could see a lot of people jumping on that.
Right. No, and I agree, but I'm not. I think the biggest downside is that we don't always see these like taller guys do as well in the NFL as I think they might. Like for like the Mo Alley Coxes of the world, for
Yeah,
instance.
yeah.
And
I
stuff
get
like
it.
that. So
I get it.
so so I think he's a very intriguing prospect, but I think I would rather have other
Right.
prospects ahead of.
I think the biggest problem with Darnell Washington is he played with Brock Bowers. It just limited
Yeah.
his
Yes.
opportunities so much that
Absolutely.
we
Absolutely.
just didn't get
Yes.
to see what all he could do, and
Yes.
that's just based on what I've seen of him, I think that he's very, very talented, and he's going to be a very good playmaker at the NFL level, just based on his size and his. I think he's going to be more. He's going to surprise people at the combine. That's my prediction on Washington. But if he didn't play with Brock Bowers, I think he had the potential to really showcase a lot more. But Brock Bowers is just so damn good. So what are you going to do, right? So, all right. So that said, last tight end there. This guy is someone that I want to talk about here, and it's going to be, if I can find him, one of my favorite wide receivers of this draft class, Parker Washington. He's the one that I think, and this is going to be the last wide receiver of the mock. I think Parker Washington has so much potential to rise up boards. I could honestly see him going, almost all the way up to like Josh Downs at the 2.4 or 2.5, somewhere in that range, just because this guy is a running back in a wide receiver's body, or he's a wide receiver in a running back's body. Let me put it correctly. Yeah. He's not the biggest guy. He's very stocky, right? Looking at his measurables, he's 5'10", 215. Like, he's a thick boy. That's what you want from a running back, right? So he is a running back's body, but the way he moves and the way he can catch and manipulate the corners and all that stuff, like, he reminds me so much of James Washington. And I get it, James Washington didn't produce as well, but there was so much hype around James Washington, and I just don't want that to be forgotten because the player didn't work out, right? Parker Washington looks so good, man, and if he can show it at the NFL level, man, he's going to be a steal. I believe that. I truly do.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I'm excited about him as well. I think one of his bigger attributes is that he's able to make those contested catches. So sometimes and be physical, which is really going to bode well in the NFL. Because
he's like Debo. That's who he reminds me so much of.
I want to go that far, but I think the biggest knock on him I have is that he didn't have as much production in college that I would have liked personally for someone that we want to be really dominant and stuff like that. But also he was playing with Will Levis and Sean Clifford, who I've watched for a couple years, and they're not super great quarterbacks, and the Penn State scheme is different than a lot of it. Well, it's just not as wide receiver.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% there. So for me, the ideal situation for Parker Washington, I'm putting this out there to will this into existence, right? The San Francisco 49ers, they're going to trade Trey Lance. They're going to trade Brandon Ayuk this offseason. Maybe the Bears go get Brandon Ayuk. That'd be pretty nice right there.
Yeah, it would.
Wouldn't complain about that. They just paid Debo. It's really hard to feature all of those guys at the same time.
Nope.
So let's say they trade Brandon Ayuk, go get Parker Washington in the third round, second round. Ooh, baby. And again, I don't think he's as good as Debo. Don't get me wrong there. He's not as explosive as Debo. But Debo's whole thing is he's a thick type running back type of wide receiver. You put this guy in Kyle Shanahan's system, oh my gosh, he will be the next Debo. That's what my prediction is there.
No, so. I definitely agree with that. So I also think it helps him that he has like that kick returner gear, I guess you could say.
Yes.
I feel that's going to be good and a detriment for him. So it's going to be interesting how he tests on like those explosiveness drills and stuff like that, and see how he compares to other people.
Or the broad jump and the
in the code drills and it's gonna be interesting how he tests on the jump. Verts and stuff like that. So
I kept saying 40, and I was like, it's not the 40. You're not jumping.
No, it is not the 40. Yeah, it is not the 40. But I'm more interested to see his like 3-cone drill and see how he's able to cut and do stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So we'll see what he can do. Again, we're gonna update the rankings on these post combine, and then one final time post draft. So we can kind of walk through this through the offseason. So these are early rankings. They're gonna change, but these are just where we would kind of take these guys. So the last guy again is gonna be Stetson Bennett, and
Oh,
24 overall.
sorry.
I get it. I do get it. And the whole thing here is early rankings. It's hard for me to pass up a quarterback that I think is going to be a second round pick or higher in the actual NFL draft. And I don't love the talent of Stetson Bennett, but he's not bad. Like, he's not a bad quarterback. He's just not great, right? And sort of like Bryce Young has a higher ceiling, but Stetson Bennett he's Jimmy Garoppolo, man. He just wins. That's all he does. He's not exciting. He's not flashy. It's not fun to watch, but I just think that he's going to be overvalued by actual NFL teams. He's going to go higher. Draft him here at the 212. If you can get him there at the 212, let's say he goes as a first round pick, probably not. But if you can get him at the 212, maybe he goes to a decent team. He'll have a chance at some point in his career to be a starter. You trade him high later. That's basically the whole thing there, because, you look at some of the guys left on the board, and I get it, the Deuce Vaughns, Tajay Spears, Zay Flowers, some of these guys there. Just give me the quarterback in case he hits, essentially. Zay Flowers would probably be my last guy here. I've kind of been rising on him a little bit, but that's kind of right there. These two guys are right there at the end of the second.
Calvin.
I don't love it, but I just got to be real with my rankings.
I don't know if you were aware that like Stetson Bennett this morning got caught with I think like with a DUI charge in Dallas.
Great.
So yes. So
I did not know that, actually.
He will not be a first round pick. If he's a first round pick, I will do something absolutely crazy. I don't care. I will. There's no way he's a first. No way.
I probably not.
And then after today's stuff, he's definitely it's going to be interesting to see if he's even a day 2 pick, and he's not going to the Senior Bowl to show off more.
I did see that. That was surprising. I was a little surprised by that.
I mean, Hendon Hooker's going to the Senior Bowl and not Stetson Bennett. So that shows you. I feel that shows you more about Hendon Hooker.
Hooker's not even playing, is he? He's still injured, right?
Yeah. He's not. He's
just going to meet with people, essentially.
Yeah. And he's just going to go to meet the guys. He's going to start learning playbooks.
Yep.
I think that's more beneficial than you being.
I agree.
I
have Hendon Hooker as a 1.8. It's just I get it. I do get it. We'll see where
So I think Stetson Bennett is going to be back up for a couple years and be out of the league. I don't think he is that guy. I understand that he's a 2-time national championship, but so was I think AJ McCarron. I think is who that was in the mid 2010s with Alabama, and then look at him now, like he's broadcasting on ESPN for college football games.
Yeah, so I'm with you, but I'm just saying, AJ McCarron.
That's where I see Stetson Bennett. That is where I see Stetson Bennett in 5 years.
How highly was AJ McCarron drafted, though? That's the problem, right?
I think he was a 6th round pick, and that's where Stetson Bennett should be picked.
I thought he was higher than that.
I'm pretty sure.
You can pull that up, but I thought he was higher than that. But here's the problem, right? We see this every single year with Jimmy Garoppolo. Well, his stats suck, but he wins. So it's just NFL teams have dumb priorities, man. I am with you 100%. They shouldn't prioritize it, but I'm trying to just be predictive a little bit here with my rankings, as much as go ahead. Did you see his
for
draft
AJ McCarron?
Yep.
Yeah, AJ McCarron was picked up in the 5th round.
5th round
in 5th round.
I thought it was higher. Who am I thinking of?
I have no idea, but I don't know. But okay. I really think that's where Stetson Bennett's gonna go. That's where he should go.
That's where he should go. I just don't think he will. That's kind of the problem.
He's 5'11" and 190, Cal.
Hey, Bryce Young's 5'11" and 190. He's going to be the number 1 overall pick.
I would much rather have Bryce Young because I know he can at least make plays. I think for
not
Stetson
when it matters.
Stetson fair, but I feel for Stetson Bennett had a lot of talent, had a very good teams around him compared to a lot of other players.
I understand.
And that really hid a lot of his downfall.
I get it. I understand all the arguments with Stetson Bennett. Like, I'm with you on most of it. The problem is I just think that he's going to be drafted higher. So until we know the final draft rankings, he will be the one I want to punt off a bridge the fastest. But we'll see where he gets drafted. That's kind of I'm hedging until we have the actual draft analysis. So real quick, breaking news. I don't know if you just saw this or not, but your Miami Dolphins got Vic Fangio, agreed to terms with him, to be the defensive coordinator. That's huge.
I'm very excited about that. I think he's a very good DC, and I think he's going to coach up Bradley Chubb, and they're going to be
that'll be a fun.
They're going to be fantastic this year.
That defense has so much potential, but man, that's good.
It does.
That's good. All right. So, any major last thoughts on the second round here? And if you haven't heard yet, we're going to be coming out tomorrow with the podcast. Tomorrow is going to be talking through some existing players and their draft value. Who would you rather have, Jordan Addison or X, right? So stay tuned for that. And we're going to kind of really put some value to these guys here. And you can disagree with the rankings however you want, but what are your final thoughts here on round 2?
It's very interesting. It's really what more I expect. I think the only players I don't really expect in the second round would obviously be Bennett. But he's late, so I think I agree with you that Will Levis is going to be a first round pick. Zach Evans might be end of the first. Other than that, I mean everybody else is pretty right where I think they are. I think the only people you're missing out on, I think, is Zay Flowers is a big one.
Yeah, I can see that.
I'm starting to love Zay Flowers, and I think he has a lot of the skills needed.
Mm-hmm.
I also have Rashee Rice as one I get it. Going to be very interesting.
I just like these guys. These other wide receivers, I like them so much more. That's kind of the problem.
Yes, and that's very fair with like this wide receiver class. I think you're going to be splitting a lot of hairs.
Yep.
On your preference.
Yep, exactly. So, thoughts on the draft as a whole? We won't have to quick thoughts here. The Hendon Hooker, I get it. Realistically, you're going to be getting him in the 2.9, 2.10, somewhere in that range, and I understand that, but dude's going to be talented. We're going to see it, but
that's fair. That is very fair.
Any other thoughts on these guys? Again, early rankings, a lot of flexibility to change these guys here over the next couple months, but any standouts?
I think one standout to me personally is going to be Anthony Richardson and how he does at 1-3. I can see him being more of a late first personally because there's so much other talent. But I do think it's going to be really interesting to see.
Are you saying NFL or rookie?
Well, both.
I was going to say if he's a late NFL first, I mean. So was Lamar Jackson, and now what is he worth, right?
Oh, yeah.
So Bijan Robinson and C.J. Stroud or Lamar in Superflex, who would you rather? It's close, right? So
yeah, it is close. So honestly, like all these guys are pretty well within their limit.
Yeah, that's fair. And again, I get it. This is not how the actual draft board's going to go.
Right.
Maybe once we have more of a consensus after the actual NFL draft, maybe that's what we can do then is compare the consensus versus what my rankings are and where some of the big values in bus, the trap picks, as you called them, really lie. But yeah, that's where it's going to be interesting, but there's a lot of flexibility. So any last thoughts before we get out of here? We'll shut this one down. Go watch some football.
We're all good.
All right.
Exactly.
Thank you guys for joining us. Again, you can follow us on Twitter at TDC_Calvin, at Dynasty_Dale. Find the podcast anywhere you find podcasts, really. Apple, Google, Spotify, YouTube, anywhere you want to go. We're there. Shout out one more time to Let's Talk Sports. Go check out my other podcast there, The Calvin Tim Show. Just a good time. So that said, thank you guys for joining us, and come back tomorrow for some actual valuation on these picks. We're going to really put some names to them. But until then, have a good night.